Let me tell you about one of the great tragedies of life. It is not death. The real tragedy is to arrive at the end of your days, looking back, only to realize you have lived just a fraction of the life you were capable of living. The tragedy is to leave a vast ocean of your own potential completely untouched, to die with the music still locked inside of you. Now, here is a fundamental truth. This outcome is not an accident. For most, it is a design. A life built by default, not by intention. Every single day, there is a silent architect at work, building your life. It lays the bricks of your habits, erects the walls of your beliefs, and designs the ceiling of your potential. That architect is your own mind. And here is the truth you must confront today. For years, perhaps for your entire life, you have handed that architect a flawed blueprint. A blueprint drawn from fear, doubt, and the limiting opinions of others. If the thought of that wasted potential fills you with a profound sense of urgency, then you are in the right place. Because over the next hour, we are not going to simply talk about motivation. We are going to become master architects. We will dismantle the faulty structure of limitation, and I will give you the timeless blueprint to construct a life of achievement, of purpose, and of deep fulfillment. Stay with me. Your new design begins now. So, let us talk about this blueprint, this invisible architecture. What is it really? We call it by many names: mindset, belief system, self-concept, perspective. But tonight, I want you to think of it simply as the story, the grand, overarching narrative you tell yourself about who you are, how the world works, and what you are allowed to have within it. This story is the most powerful force in your life. It is more powerful than the economy, more powerful than your background, more powerful than luck, and more powerful than circumstance. Why? Because your story is the filter through which you interpret all of those things. Imagine two people who face the exact same event. Let's say they both lose their job. For the first person, the story they tell themselves is one of victimhood. This always happens to me. The world is unfair. I'm not good enough, and this proves it. This story leads to feelings of despair, to inaction, and ultimately to a self-fulfilling prophecy of continued failure. The second person, faced with the same event, chooses to tell a different story. This is a setback, yes, but it is also an opportunity. It's a chance to reevaluate what I truly want. This is life pushing me towards something better. That story, that simple change in narrative, leads to resilience, to action, to learning new skills, and ultimately to finding an even greater opportunity. Notice the event was identical. The circumstances were the same. The only thing that was different was the internal story, and that difference made all the difference. Now, the most important question you must ask yourself is this: where did my current story come from? Did I consciously choose it? Did I sit down and design it, like an architect designing a magnificent building? For 99% of people, the answer is no. Your story was not designed by you. It was assembled. It was given to you, piece by piece, from the moment you were born. Think about it. We enter this world as blank slates with infinite potential. But then the programming begins. We absorb the beliefs of our parents. If they lived in a world of scarcity and fear, they pass that blueprint on to us, often with the best of intentions. They say things like, be careful, don't take risks, money doesn't grow on trees. They are not trying to limit you, they are trying to protect you. But they are protecting you with the walls of their own limitations. Then comes school. We are taught to follow the rules, to color within the lines, to give the right answer. We are taught that failure is something to be avoided, something to be ashamed of. A red X on a piece of paper becomes a brand on our identity. So we learn not to try things we might fail at. We learn to play it safe. Another brick is laid in the wall of our self-imposed prison. We grow up and turn on the television. We scroll through our phones. We are bombarded with messages of what we lack. You're not thin enough, not rich enough, not popular enough. The story of not enough is whispered to us 1,000 times a day until we start whispering it to ourselves. And perhaps most profoundly, we build our story from our own past experiences. You try a new venture and it doesn't work out. The event is neutral, but the story you attach to it is what matters. Instead of saying that approach didn't work, I've learned something valuable, you tell yourself, see, I'm a failure. I'm not cut out for business. And that one story, that one interpretation of an event can prevent you from ever trying again. It becomes a ghost that haunts all of your future decisions. So you see, the blueprint you're using to build your life was likely drawn by well-meaning but limited parents, a conformist education system, a commercialized culture, and a younger, less wise version of yourself. Is it any wonder that the building doesn't look the way you want it to? You're using a blueprint for a small cottage while dreaming of a magnificent palace. So, how do we begin the process of architectural review? How do we identify the flawed parts of our own blueprint? It begins by learning to listen to the quiet, constant conversation happening inside your own mind. Most of us are so busy living that we never observe the narrator of our lives. You must become an observer of your own thoughts. And when you listen, you will begin to hear the recurring themes, the language of limitation. It often sounds like this: I can't do that because. And what follows the because is your story. Because I don't have the degree. Because I'm too old. Because I'm not a natural salesperson. Or it sounds like this: I'm just not the kind of person who. A statement that freezes your identity in the past. I'm not the kind of person who speaks in public. I'm not the kind of person who is disciplined with money. Who decided that? You did. And you can decide differently. The first step to freedom is to catch yourself in the act of telling the old story, to simply notice it without judgment, to say, there it is again, that old story. When you start listening, you'll find that most limiting beliefs fall into a few common categories. Let's call them the 4 villains of your personal story. The first is the villain of inferiority. This is the I'm not enough story. I'm not smart enough, not talented enough, not charismatic enough. This villain keeps you from applying for the promotion, from starting the business, from introducing yourself to the influential person. It convinces you that success is for other people, the special ones, the gifted ones. But let me tell you, I have met incredibly successful people from all walks of life. The one thing they have in common is not raw talent. It's that they refuse to let this villain write their story. They decided they were enough, and they went to work. The second villain is the villain of victimhood. This is the story that says, it's not my fault. The system is rigged. My boss is holding me back. My past was too difficult. This villain is seductive because it absolves you of all responsibility. But in doing so, it strips you of all your power. As long as someone or something else is the reason for your lack of success, you are helpless to change it. The moment you fire that villain and take full responsibility is the moment you take the pen back into your own hands. The third villain is the villain of timing. This is the it's too late or it's too early story. I'm too old to start a new career. I'm too young. No one will take me seriously. This villain creates a perpetual state of waiting for the right moment, waiting until the kids are grown, waiting until you have more experience. But the perfect conditions don't exist. The right moment is a myth. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, not with waiting for the road to be perfectly paved. And the fourth villain is the villain of cynicism. This story says, it won't work anyway. Success is all about luck or dishonesty. Rich people are greedy. This villain masquerades as wisdom, as realism, but it is simply a sophisticated excuse for inaction. It's a defense mechanism to protect you from the pain of trying and failing. By believing that the game is rigged, you give yourself permission not to play. And the only certain way to lose is to not get in the game at all. Inferiority, victimhood, timing, cynicism. These are the flawed foundations upon which lives of quiet desperation are built. So, the critical work begins. The work of becoming a conscious architect. How do we tear down the old structure and draw a new blueprint? It is a process. It requires diligence. And it starts with a simple but profound choice. The choice to question everything. The next time you hear one of those villainous stories in your mind, I'm not good enough, I want you to stop. And I want you to challenge that thought. As a lawyer would challenge a witness in court, ask it. Is that really true? Is it 100% absolutely true that I am not good enough? Can I find a single piece of evidence from my entire life where I was good enough, where I succeeded, where I learned something new? What you will find is that these limiting beliefs are not solid facts. They are opinions. And they are often very weak opinions, built on flimsy evidence from years ago. When you shine the light of conscious inquiry on them, they begin to dissolve. After you question the old story, the next step is to deliberately replace it. This is not about just thinking positive. This is about strategic, deliberate mental nutrition. Your mind is like a garden. For years, you have allowed weeds of doubt and fear to grow unchecked. You cannot simply wish them away. You must actively pull the weeds. And then you must just as actively plant the flowers you want to grow instead. How do you do this? You control the inputs. You stop feeding your mind with a constant diet of negativity, gossip, and fear from the news and social media. That is the equivalent of pouring poison into your garden. Instead, you begin a disciplined regimen of feeding your mind with power, wisdom, and possibility. You read the books of great thinkers. You listen to the lectures of those who have achieved what you want to achieve. You guard the gateway of your mind with vigilance. You understand that what you read, what you watch, and who you listen to is either building your palace or reinforcing your prison. There is no neutral ground. Let me give you a story. I once knew two brothers who grew up in the same house with the same difficult, impoverished circumstances. One grew up and spent his life in and out of trouble, blaming his upbringing for his failures. When asked why his life turned out this way, he said, "What do you expect? With a childhood like mine?" The other brother grew up to be a tremendously successful businessman, a philanthropist, a respected community leader. When asked how he achieved so much, he said, "What do you expect? With a childhood like mine?" The same circumstances. Two entirely different stories. One used his past as an excuse, the other used it as fuel. He used the pain of his childhood to forge an unbreakable resolve to create a different life. He fed his mind with stories of resilience, not stories of defeat. He chose his blueprint. This is the power you have right now. The power to reinterpret your past and to redesign your future. As you begin to question the old and feed the new, you can accelerate the process with one more powerful tool, the power of declaration. Some people call these affirmations, but often they are misunderstood. Standing in a mirror and saying, "I am a millionaire," when you are drowning in debt can feel like a lie. Your subconscious mind will simply reject it. The key is to frame your declarations in a way that aligns with the process of becoming. Instead of "I am a millionaire," you declare, "I am a person who takes disciplined, intelligent action every day to build wealth and create value." Do you see the difference? The first is a static state. The second is an active identity. It's a description of the person you are choosing to become. "I am a confident public speaker" might feel false, but I am a person who is committed to practicing and improving my communication skills. Every single day is a truth you can own right now. These declarations are your new script. You are the actor, and this is the role of a lifetime. You must rehearse your new lines until they become second nature. You say them in the morning. You say them at night. You write them down. You anchor them to your new identity. Over time, through this process of questioning, of deliberate mental nutrition, and of consistent declaration, something remarkable happens. The old neural pathways of doubt and fear in your brain begin to weaken. The new pathways of confidence and possibility begin to strengthen. You are, quite literally, rewiring your own mind. You are demolishing the old, flawed structure, brick by brick, and you are laying a new, magnificent foundation. This is the foundational work. This is the most important work you will ever do, because every single thing you do in the external world, every action you take, every goal you set, every risk you face will be built upon this mental foundation. If the foundation is weak, the building will crumble. If the foundation is strong, there is no limit to the height you can build. This is why we begin here. Because you can have the best strategies in the world, the best business plan, the best workout routine, but if you have a blueprint in your mind that says, I am destined to fail, you will find a way to sabotage your own success. Your life will never rise above the ceiling of the story you tell yourself. So, the work begins now. The work of becoming a conscious observer. The work of questioning your own conclusions. The work of deliberately feeding your mind. And the work of rewriting your personal declaration of who you are and what you are capable of. You have been given a flawed blueprint, yes. But you have also been given the power to redesign. The power of a conscious mind. The power of choice. Now, a powerful new blueprint is the essential first step. It is the architectural drawing of the life you wish to create. But a blueprint, no matter how beautiful, no matter how detailed, has never built a single thing on its own. A blueprint sitting on a table is just a dream. To turn that dream into a reality, to turn that design into a magnificent structure, we must move from the internal world to the external. We must pick up the tools. We must begin the construction. And that requires the second great principle of achievement. It requires the catalyst that turns vision into substance. It requires action. In our last session, we did the essential work, the foundational work. We learned that our lives are not a product of circumstance, but a product of the story we tell ourselves, the internal blueprint we hand to the architect of our mind. We have confronted the flawed designs of our past and have committed to drawing a new, magnificent blueprint for our future. And this is a profound achievement. To have clarity, to have a new vision, is to have separated yourself from the vast majority of people who drift through life without a map. But a map, no matter how beautifully drawn, will never carry you a single inch closer to your destination. A blueprint, no matter how brilliant, has never built a single home. It is merely a picture of a possibility. There exists a great chasm in human experience, a vast empty space that separates the life you dream of from the life you are living. On one side of this chasm is your new blueprint, your clarity, your goals, your vision. On the other side is the magnificent reality you wish to create. Many people spend their entire lives standing on the edge of this chasm, looking across at their dreams, wishing they could somehow float across. They study the chasm, they analyze it. They talk about one day crossing it, but they never take the first step onto the bridge. That bridge, the only bridge that has ever existed between vision and reality, is action. Action is the catalyst. It is the raw material of creation. It is the force that turns the invisible energy of thought into the visible substance of achievement. Without it, your new blueprint is nothing more than a well-intentioned fantasy. It is a dream that will die with you. So, the most pressing question we must now address is this. If action is the bridge, why do so many of us remain stuck on one side? Why do we know what to do yet fail to do it? This brings us to one of the most pervasive and dangerous lies that we tell ourselves. It is the lie of readiness. We wait. We wait to feel motivated. We wait to feel inspired. We wait until we have more information, more money, more time. We wait for the perfect plan. We wait for the fear and doubt to subside. We wait for a sign. Let me tell you a fundamental truth of human nature. The perfect moment will never arrive. The feeling of being 100% ready is an illusion. It does not exist on the landscape of achievement. Imagine a swimmer standing at the edge of a vast, beautiful lake. He wants to swim to the other side, but he tells himself, I will swim when the water is perfectly still, when there are no ripples, no wind, no uncertainty. So he waits. The sun rises and sets. The seasons change. And he continues to wait for a condition that nature will never provide. His potential remains unrealized, not because he couldn't swim, but because he was waiting for a permission slip that was never going to come. Perfectionism is not a virtue. It is procrastination in a tuxedo. It is a sophisticated form of fear, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being seen as a beginner. You must understand this. The people who achieve greatness are not the ones who waited until they felt ready. They are the ones who learned to act while they were afraid. They learned to move forward despite the uncertainty. They understood that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is taking action in the presence of fear. Courage is a consequence of the act, not a prerequisite for it. So, if we cannot rely on the feeling of readiness, what can we rely on? This brings us to a critical distinction. The distinction between motivation and discipline. Motivation is a wonderful feeling. It's the spark. It's the emotional high you get from watching a video like this, from reading an inspiring book, from setting a new goal. It's powerful, but it is also fickle. It is an emotion, and like all emotions, it comes and goes like the weather. You cannot build a life on an emotion. You cannot construct a great career or a strong body or a beautiful relationship based on something that might not show up tomorrow morning. Discipline, on the other hand, is not a feeling. Discipline is a choice. It is a commitment. It is the engine that you build to keep moving forward, especially on the days when the motivation is gone. Motivation is like a lightning strike, powerful and bright, but over in a flash. Discipline is like the quiet, steady flow of a river that can carve canyons out of stone over time. Desire can get you started, but discipline is what gets you to the finish line. The amateur waits for motivation to strike. The professional adheres to a schedule. The amateur works when they feel good. The professional does the work, good day or bad, because they have made a commitment. The question you must ask yourself is, are you approaching your life as an amateur or as a professional? Now, the idea of discipline can seem daunting. We imagine a life of rigid, joyless sacrifice, but that's a misunderstanding. True discipline is not about punishment. It is about wisdom. It is the wisdom to choose between what you want now and what you want most. It's understanding that the short-term pleasure of hitting the snooze button often leads to the long-term pain of regret, while the short-term discipline of getting up leads to the long-term rewards of progress and pride. Discipline is simply the ability to give yourself a command and then follow it. It is the highest form of self-love. And here is the good news. Discipline is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. It doesn't require a massive overhaul of your life overnight. It begins with the smallest possible step, the simple act of overcoming inertia. Think about the laws of physics. An object at rest stays at rest. An object in motion stays in motion. The hardest part is always that first push, taking the first step, making the first call, writing the first sentence, going to the gym for the first time. Once you are in motion, it becomes infinitely easier to stay in motion. The challenge is that first act of will. That is why your entire focus should not be on the entire journey, but simply on taking the next logical step. This brings us to one of the most powerful principles for building a life of success, a principle as old and as reliable as the earth itself. It is the law of sowing and reaping, or what we might call the law of compounding effort. The modern world has conditioned us for instant gratification. We want the results, and we want them now. We want the harvest the day after we plant the seed, but nature does not work that way, and neither does success. Let me tell you a story. There was once a wise old man who lived in a village that relied on a single, old-fashioned water pump for its survival. One day, a young, impatient traveler arrived, dying of thirst. He ran to the pump and began to work the handle furiously. He pumped and pumped, sweat pouring down his face, but not a single drop of water came out. After a few minutes, he gave up in disgust. "The pump is broken," he declared. "This is useless." The old man, who had been watching from afar, walked over calmly. He picked up a small bucket of water that was sitting next to the pump, and he poured it into the top. The young man was aghast. "What are you doing? We have so little water, and you're wasting it." The old man simply smiled and began to work the handle with a steady, consistent rhythm. For a minute, nothing happened. The only sound was the creaking of the old pump. The young man shook his head. But then a faint gurgle was heard from deep within the earth. The old man continued his steady rhythm. The gurgle grew louder, and then a trickle of water emerged from the spout, and then a flow, and then a powerful, life-giving gush of fresh, cool water. The old man drank his fill and then gestured for the young man to do the same. As he drank, the old man explained, the pump was not broken. It simply needed to be primed. You have to give a little water to get a lot of water. You have to do the work when there is no evidence of a reward, trusting that the water is on its way. This is the perfect metaphor for success. That initial period of effort where you are pouring your energy, your time, your focus into something with no visible return, that is you priming the pump. This is the invisible growth phase. This is where most people quit. They quit 3 feet from gold. They stop pumping just before the water's about to flow. It's like the Chinese bamboo tree. You can plant the seed, water it, and fertilize it for 4 long years and see nothing more than a tiny sprout. 4 years of disciplined effort with nothing to show for it. But then, in the 5th year, the bamboo tree explodes from the ground and grows 90 feet tall in just 6 weeks. The question is, did the tree grow 90 feet in 6 weeks? Or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years? The answer, of course, is that it grew in 5 years. The real work, the foundational work, was happening unseen, underground, as the roots spread wide and deep. Without the foundation of those 4 years, the rapid growth of the 5th year would be impossible. This is the process you must fall in love with. The simple, often unglamorous daily arithmetic of consistency. Think about it this way. One small positive action repeated every day for a year seems insignificant in the moment. Reading 10 pages of a good book, making 5 extra sales calls, walking for 30 minutes. Each individual act is trivial, but the cumulative effect, the compounding effect over 365 days is monumental. Conversely, one small act of neglect seems harmless. Skipping your reading, eating the junk food, putting off the important conversation. It doesn't seem to matter today. But compound that neglect over 365 days, and you create a life of decay and regret. The distance between the person who practices daily discipline and the person who practices daily neglect is not small. After a decade, they are living in 2 completely different worlds. And the divergence of those 2 paths began with one small, seemingly insignificant choice made today. To truly master this law, we can look to one of nature's greatest teachers, the ant. The ant operates on a simple yet profound philosophy. First, ants never quit. If an ant is heading somewhere and you try to stop it, it will look for another way. It will climb over, it will climb under, it will climb around. It will keep looking for a way to get where it's going. What a remarkable philosophy. To never give up, to always look for an alternative path. Second, ants think winter all summer. They don't sit around enjoying the sun, believing the good times will last forever. They are actively gathering their food, preparing for the difficult times they know are ahead. They are taking action now for a future reality. Third, ants think summer all winter. In the middle of the cold, do the ants think this will last forever? No. They know this is just a season. They are huddled together, reminding themselves that it won't be long until they can emerge again. They maintain their optimism and their long-term perspective. And finally, ants do all they possibly can. How much will an ant gather during the summer? As much as it can possibly carry. What an incredible standard for our own lives. To do all you can with all you have in the time you've been given. Never quit. Prepare for the future. Remain optimistic. And do all you can do. If you were to simply adopt the philosophy of the ant, your entire life would transform. So you see, action is not a mystery. It is a choice. It is a discipline. It is a law of nature. It begins with abandoning the lie of readiness. It is sustained by choosing discipline over the fleeting emotion of motivation. It is magnified by the incredible power of consistency, by priming the pump and trusting the process of invisible growth. You have your blueprint from our first session. It is clear in your mind. Now, you must become the builder. You must honor your vision with your effort. You must pick up the tools of discipline and begin the daily work of construction. But let me prepare you for what comes next. The moment you begin to build, the moment you step into the arena of action, you are guaranteed to encounter something. You will meet resistance. The materials won't fit perfectly. The wind will blow. The rain will fall. You will make mistakes. You will face setbacks. You will inevitably fail. And this is not a sign that you should stop. This is a sign that your journey has truly begun. For it is in how we respond to this resistance, how we handle the inevitable reality of failure, that the true character of our creation is revealed. So, we have made a commitment. We have moved from the world of ideas to the world of action. We have begun the construction of our new design, fueled by the engine of discipline and the law of consistency. You are in motion, and I must now tell you a truth that is as certain as the rising of the sun. Because you are in motion, you are guaranteed to meet resistance. The moment you step into the arena of meaningful pursuit, you sign an unwritten contract with a force known as adversity. The path to your goals is not an empty, paved highway. It is a rugged, uphill trail. There will be stones that trip you, storms that blind you, and moments where the path disappears entirely. You will make mistakes. You will have setbacks. You will, by the world's definition, fail. Now, for many people, this is where the journey ends. The appearance of this resistance is interpreted as a stop sign. They see it as proof that their blueprint was flawed, that their action was futile, that they were right to be afraid all along. They retreat back to the safety of the chasm's edge, content to dream rather than to build. And this, right here, is where the great divergence in life occurs. This is the test. Because today, I want to propose a radical new idea. I want us to completely dismantle our relationship with failure. I want you to see it not as your greatest enemy, but as your most profound and indispensable teacher. We are about to enroll in what I call the University of Setbacks. There are no classrooms, no textbooks. The tuition is paid with your mistakes. And the diploma is a life of wisdom, resilience, and unshakable strength. First, we must perform a crucial act of mental alchemy. We must redefine the word itself. For your entire life, you have been conditioned to believe that failure is an identity, that to fail at something means you are a failure. This is perhaps the most destructive lie ever woven into the fabric of our culture. Let us be perfectly clear. Failure is an event, never a person. Did you try a business venture that didn't succeed? You are not a failure. You are a person who has now learned what doesn't work. You are a scientist who has gathered valuable data from an experiment. The scientist whose hypothesis is proven wrong is not a failure scientist. They are simply a scientist one step closer to the truth. Did you attempt to mend a relationship and it fell apart? You are not a failure. You are a person who has gained a deeper understanding of human connection. Failure is not a tattoo on your soul. It is a signpost on your journey. And its only purpose is to offer you information, to give you feedback, to provide a course correction. Imagine you are driving to a new destination using a GPS. You get distracted, you take a wrong turn. What does the GPS do? Does the voice say, "You have failed. You are a terrible driver. All hope is lost. Shutting down now?" Of course not. It would be absurd. It simply and calmly says, recalculating, and shows you the new path from where you are. Failure is nothing more than your life's GPS saying, recalculating. It is not judging you. It is not condemning you. It is simply providing you with the data needed to get back on track. The only way you truly fail is if you get out of the car, sit on the side of the road, and refuse to drive any further. Staying down is the choice that turns a temporary event into a permanent identity. So if failure is just data, just a course correction, why do we have such a deep primal fear of it? To master this fear, we must understand its origins. Like the flawed blueprint we discussed earlier, this fear was not born with you, it was taught to you. It began in school. We were taught that the goal was to have all the right answers. A red X on a piece of paper was a mark of shame. We learned to fear the judgment of our teachers and our peers. So, what did we do? We learned to only raise our hand when we were certain we were right. We learned not to attempt the difficult problem for fear of getting it wrong. We were trained to become spectators in the game of life, rather than players. This conditioning follows us into adulthood. We fear what our colleagues will think if our project doesn't succeed. We fear what our family will say if our new business struggles. We fear looking foolish, incompetent, or naive. We become so preoccupied with managing the perceptions of others that we forget to manage our own progress. We trade the possibility of spectacular achievement for the certainty of silent mediocrity. But the deepest fear of failure comes from our own ego. The ego wants to be seen as perfect, as competent, as someone who has it all figured out. Failure is a direct threat to that fragile image. So, the ego constructs a powerful defense mechanism. It convinces you not to try. If you don't try, it whispers, you can never fail. And so we stay in the job we hate, the relationship that no longer serves us, the life that is a fraction of what it could be, all to protect a self-image that was never real to begin with. You must understand, your potential is on the other side of your ego. Your growth is on the other side of your comfort zone. And the gateway to that growth is paved with the very stones of failure you have been taught to avoid. So, let us talk about the curriculum at this University of Setbacks. What are the lessons that only failure can teach? First, failure teaches humility. Success can be a poor teacher. It can breed arrogance. It can convince the wise that they cannot be wrong. Failure is the great equalizer. It reminds us that we are still students in the classroom of life. It keeps us grounded, open-minded, and ready to learn. A dose of humility is an essential ingredient for long-term sustainable success. Second, failure forges resilience. Resilience is not a quality you are born with. It is a muscle. And like any muscle, it can only be strengthened through resistance. You do not build physical strength by lifting nothing. You do not build character by facing no challenges. You build resilience by falling down and choosing to get back up. Think of how a master blacksmith forges a sword. He takes a piece of raw steel, heats it in a blazing fire until it is white hot, then pulls it out and hammers it. He plunges it into cold water, then heats it again and hammers it again. It is a violent, painful process. But it is this very process of fire and impact that burns away the impurities and aligns the molecules, turning a brittle piece of metal into a sword of incredible strength and flexibility. Your character is that sword. Your setbacks are the fire and the hammer. Do not resent the process that is making you unbreakable. Third, failure fuels innovation. Comfort is the enemy of progress. When things are working well, there is little incentive to change. It is only when our plans crumble, when our strategies fail, when the old way no longer works, that we are forced to become truly creative. It is in the soil of our greatest failures that the seeds of our most brilliant breakthroughs are often planted. Many of the world's most incredible inventions were happy accidents, discovered while trying and failing to create something else entirely. Failure forces you to look at the world from a new perspective, and that is where innovation is born. Finally, failure reveals your commitment. Life will test you. It will always test you. When you set a bold goal, life will whisper, "Are you sure?" And then when you face your first major setback, life will ask you point blank, "How bad do you want it?" Your response to that question in that moment of trial reveals everything. If you quit, then you didn't want it badly enough. But if you get up, learn the lesson, and push forward with even more resolve, you send a powerful message back to the universe. You declare that your commitment is not for sale. And that is when life begins to yield to a will that refuses to be broken. So, we understand what failure is and is not. We understand why we fear it, and we understand what it is here to teach us. Now, let's talk about the practical application. How do we become an alchemist who can turn the lead of failure into the gold of success? Here is a simple, but not easy, framework. Let's call it the alchemist's formula. Step one is to practice emotional detachment. When you first experience a setback, it hurts. There is disappointment, frustration, perhaps even embarrassment. You are human. You must allow yourself to feel these emotions. Do not suppress them, but you must not live there. I recommend what I call the 24-hour rule. Give yourself 24 hours to be angry, to be frustrated, to grieve the loss of your expectation. But when the sun rises on the next day, your time for emotional indulgence is over. The work of analysis begins. Step two is to conduct an objective analysis. You must become a detective at the scene of the crime. You must separate your ego from the event and look at the facts with cold, hard objectivity. This is where you expand upon the two questions we mentioned earlier. You must ask, first, what was my intended outcome? What did the blueprint say should happen? Second, what was the actual outcome? What happened in reality? Third, what is the story of the gap between those two things? Why did it happen? Be honest. Was it a flaw in your strategy? A lack of skill? A misjudgment of the circumstances? Own it. Fourth, what is the single most important lesson this gap is trying to teach me? Do not move on until you can articulate this lesson in a single clear sentence. And finally, how will I apply this lesson to create a new improved plan of action? This is how you turn a painful event into a priceless asset. You extract the wisdom and you carry the wisdom with you, leaving the emotional baggage behind. Step 3 is to master the art of the pivot. Sometimes the lesson from a failure is not try harder. Sometimes the lesson is try different. You must not become so attached to your original plan that you are blinded to a better path that failure might be revealing to you. The world is full of stories of this. A company that set out to create video games created a communication tool that changed the world. A glue that was considered a failure because it wasn't strong enough became the basis for the Post-it note. Failure is often life's way of guiding you towards your true purpose, but you must be willing to let go of the original path to see the new one. This is the process. Feel the emotion, but don't become it. Analyze the event, but don't personalize it. And be willing to pivot based on the wisdom you have earned. So let us change our language. Let us change our philosophy. Let us no longer see the world as a struggle between success and failure. Let us see it as a continuous process of learning, growing, and becoming. The only way you can truly fail is to stop trying. The only mistake that is permanent is the one from which you refuse to learn. Embrace your setbacks. They are your education. Celebrate your mistakes. They are your mentors. The scars you gain on this journey are not marks of shame. They are emblems of your courage. They are proof that you chose to live in the arena, not to watch safely from the stands. And here is the most liberating part. Once you truly, deeply understand this principle, once you are no longer afraid of the fall, something remarkable happens. You become free. You become free to think bigger, to dream bigger, to set the kind of goals that would have terrified the old you. You become free to take the necessary, calculated risks required for extraordinary achievement. You are no longer playing to avoid losing. You are finally free to play to win. And that freedom, that audacity is exactly where we must go next. We're about halfway through our time together, and we're about to shift from dealing with the process to actively designing our future. If these ideas about action, discipline, and reframing failure are resonating with you, if you believe that life is about growth and not just existence, then I would invite you to become a part of this community. Take a moment to subscribe to the channel. We are dedicated to exploring these timeless principles for success and fulfillment week after week. It's a simple click, but it's a declaration that you are committed to your own personal development. Now, let's talk about how to build the future you desire. We have traveled a significant distance together on this journey. We began by examining the invisible architecture of our lives, the mental blueprint, the story in our minds, and we committed to redrawing it. We then built the bridge from that vision to reality with the catalyst of disciplined action. And most recently, we enrolled in the University of Setbacks, learning to transform the inevitable reality of failure from a stumbling block into a stepping stone. We have cleared the land. We have laid the foundation. We have learned how to handle the storms. Now comes the exhilarating work. Now we step up to the architect's table, because you stand at a crossroads every single morning you wake up. On one path is a life lived by chance. On the other is a life lived by choice. One path is drifting. The other is designing. The vast majority of people in this world are drifters. They are like a magnificent ship built with all the potential for a grand voyage, but cast out into the ocean without a rudder, without a map, and without a destination. They are subject to every whim of the wind, every pull of the current. The wind of public opinion blows them east. The current of economic difficulty pulls them west. They end up wherever life happens to push them, and they call it fate. And what is the result of a life spent drifting? A quiet sense of desperation, a feeling that you are a passenger in your own life. not the captain. A nagging awareness of the gap between the person you are and the person you were born to be. The years blend into one another, and the shores they wash up on are the shores of regret. But it does not have to be this way. Today, we choose the other path, the path of the designer, the path of the architect. And the first most critical act of any designer is to decide on the outcome. It begins with the profound power of clarity. It begins with goals. Now, the word goals is often misunderstood. We think of it as a to-do list, a corporate exercise, or a vague New Year's resolution that is forgotten by February. But I want you to understand that setting clear, written goals is not a trivial activity. It is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. It is the act of summoning your future into the present. There is a remarkable mechanism within the human mind. Think of it as a powerful seeker, a heat-seeking missile. For most of your life, this seeker has been dormant, without a target. But the moment you give your mind a clear, specific, and emotionally compelling goal, this seeker awakens. It begins to scan your entire world 24 hours a day for people, for opportunities, for resources, for ideas that match the target you have given it. Have you ever decided you wanted to buy a specific model of a car, and then suddenly you start seeing that exact car everywhere you go? Were there suddenly more of those cars on the road? No. They were always there. The only thing that changed was that you gave your mind a clear instruction, and it began to filter your reality to show you what you were looking for. This is the magic of clarity. What you focus on expands. When you have no clear goals, your mind focuses on everything and nothing. It focuses on worries, on distractions, on the problems of the day. But when you have a set of well-designed goals, you give your mind a powerful command. Look for this. And it will diligently go to work on your behalf. Goals do more than just direct your focus. They are a source of immense energy. A compelling vision of the future has the power to pull you through any present difficulty. It is the why that allows you to endure any how. When you have a powerful reason to get out of bed in the morning, a mission to accomplish, the difficulty of the task diminishes. The person with a small why is easily stopped by obstacles. The person with a monumental why becomes unstoppable. So, how do we craft these powerful instructions for our mind? How do we move from a vague wish to a well-defined objective? This is the craft of the architect. First, we must distinguish between a dream and a goal. A dream is a wish. I want to be happy. I want to be successful. I want to be rich. These are beautiful sentiments, but they are not goals. They are destinations with no address. They offer your mind no specific target to aim for. A goal is a dream with a deadline and a set of specifications. Rich is a dream. To build a personal net worth of $1 million by the time I am 40 years old, through my own business and sound investments. That is a goal. It is specific. It is measurable. It is time-bound. It gives your mind a clear set of coordinates. So, the first rule of the architect, be specific. Get crystal clear on what you want. Take out a clean sheet of paper. This is your design table. And write down in vivid detail what you want your life to look like in 10 years. Don't be vague. How much money are you earning annually? What is your net worth? What does your health look like? What is the quality of your relationships? What skills have you mastered? Write it as if it has already happened. Second, you must understand the immense power of writing it down. A goal that is only in your head is a suggestion. A goal that is written down becomes a commitment. There is a profound connection between the hand and the mind. The physical act of putting your vision into written words is a declaration. It is you signing a contract with your future self. It signals to your subconscious mind that this is not just a passing thought, this is a command. Review these written goals every single day. Once in the morning to set your intention for the day, and once in the evening to review your progress. Keep the blueprint in front of you. Third, you must master the art of goal decomposition. A 10-year goal can feel overwhelming. It can seem so distant that it paralyzes you from taking action today. The architect does not think about building a skyscraper all at once. They think about the foundation first, then the first floor, then the second. You must do the same. Take your grand 10-year vision and ask, to be there in 10 years, where must I be in 1 year? Now you have a 1-year goal. Then you ask, to achieve that 1-year goal, what must I accomplish each month? Now you have 12 monthly objectives. Then you ask, to meet my monthly objective, what are my key tasks for this week? Now you have a weekly plan. And finally, you ask the most important question of all, based on my weekly plan, what is the single most important thing I must do today? Do you see the power in this? You have taken a monumental, decade-long vision and you have broken it down into a single, manageable, non-intimidating action that you can take right now. This is how you build a skyscraper. Not with one giant leap, but with 10,000 bricks laid perfectly, one at a time. Now, we have a beautiful blueprint. It is clear, it is written, and it is broken down into daily actions. But there is one more thing the architect must consider before construction begins. It is the price of admission for a life of achievement. That price is calculated risk. Your greatest potential, the life depicted in your new blueprint, exists just outside the borders of your current comfort zone. The comfort zone is a pleasant place. It's familiar. It's predictable. It's safe. But let us be clear about what it is. It is a gilded cage. Nothing remarkable has ever been built from inside the comfort zone. All growth, all progress, all achievement happens when you are willing to take a step into the unknown. For years you have been taught to avoid risk, but we must redefine our terms. What is risk and what is security? Is it truly safe to stay in a job you dislike for 40 years, knowing it is slowly eroding your spirit? Is it secure to rely on a single source of income that could vanish tomorrow? Is it safe to arrive at the end of your life filled with the regret of never having tried? I propose to you that the greatest risk of all is to risk nothing. The greatest risk is to spend your life playing it so safe that you never discover what you are truly capable of. True security is not the absence of risk. True security is the unshakable faith in your own ability to handle uncertainty. Now, I am not advocating for recklessness. There is a world of difference between a calculated risk and a foolish gamble. The gambler closes their eyes, throws the dice, and hopes for the best. Their success is a matter of pure chance. The architect, the designer, takes calculated risks. They study the terrain. They analyze the materials. They understand the principles of engineering. They prepare, they plan, they strategize, and then they take an educated leap of faith. They understand failure is a possibility, as we have already discussed, but they have prepared for it. They see it not as a catastrophe, but as a data point from which to learn and adjust. Let me tell you a story of two farmers. They both inherited a plot of land. The first farmer was a man of caution. Every year, he planted the same crop his father had planted. It was a safe crop. It never failed, but it never produced much either. His harvests were predictable, meager, and just enough to get by. He lived a life free from the anxiety of failure, but also free from the joy of abundance. The second farmer was a student of his craft. He looked at his land and saw not just what it was, but what it could be. He studied the soil. He learned about new types of seeds that had the potential for a much greater harvest, but also required more skill and carried more risk. His neighbors told him he was foolish. Why change what works, they said. The first year he invested his savings into these new seeds. He took a risk. A drought came, and his harvest was smaller than his neighbors. He had failed. His neighbors shook their heads. But the farmer did not see failure. He saw a lesson. He learned his new crop needed a better irrigation system. So the next year he took another risk. He invested in building that system. And that year the weather was perfect. His new seeds in the rich soil with the proper water produced a harvest so abundant it was 10 times that of his cautious neighbor. He had not only covered his losses from the previous year, but he had created a new level of prosperity for his family for generations to come. Both men faced the same land. One chose the comfort of the familiar and was rewarded with a life of mediocrity. The other embraced the discomfort of calculated risk and was rewarded with a life of abundance. The life you want, the goals on your blueprint, are on the other side of a calculated risk. It might be the risk of starting your own business. the risk of asking for the promotion, the risk of investing in yourself, the risk of having that difficult conversation. Each of these steps requires you to leave the shoreline of certainty and sail into the open waters of possibility. So, as you look at your beautifully designed goals, you must also honestly assess the price of admission. You must ask yourself, what comfort zone must I be willing to leave? What calculated risks must I be willing to take to make this blueprint a reality? The power of a designed future is the ultimate expression of human potential. It is the conscious decision to stop drifting and start sailing. It requires the clarity of well-defined, written goals that serve as your North Star. It requires the wisdom to break those grand visions down into simple daily disciplines. And it requires the courage to embrace the calculated risks that pave the path to all meaningful rewards. You are the architect. This is your design table. The blueprint you draw is the instruction you give to your subconscious mind, to the universe, and to your own daily actions. But even the most perfect blueprint, carried out by the bravest builder, can still be undermined by one final internal element. For all that we do, all that we build, all that we risk, is ultimately governed by the overarching philosophy we hold in our minds. To ensure that the magnificent structure you are about to build will stand the test of time, we must now turn our attention to the deepest part of our foundation. We must explore the engine that drives all our thoughts and choices. We must master our inner world. We have spent our time together thus far at the architect's table. We have drawn a magnificent blueprint for our future, a life by design, not by default. We have detailed our goals with breathtaking clarity, and we have summoned the courage to accept the calculated risks required to build something remarkable. You have the plans in your hand. You have the tools of action and discipline at your side. You have the resilience forged in the University of Setbacks to handle the storms. You are ready to build. But now, we must discuss the most important element of all. We must discuss the governor on the engine. We must talk about the silent, invisible force that will ultimately determine whether your magnificent structure stands tall for decades or crumbles under the first sign of pressure. This force is your personal philosophy. Your philosophy is the operating system of your life. It is the framework upon which you hang every thought, every emotion, every decision, and every action. It is the ultimate filter through which you interpret the world. Let me give you one of the most powerful analogies I have ever learned. Imagine your life as a sailboat upon the great ocean. The winds that blow upon that ocean are the winds of circumstance. There is the wind of disappointment, the wind of opportunity, the wind of economic change, the wind of tragedy. These winds, you must understand, blow on all of us. They blow on the successful and the unsuccessful alike. They blew on you last week, and they will blow on you again tomorrow. It is not the wind that determines your destination. It is the set of your sail. And your personal philosophy is what sets that sail. With a poor philosophy, you can have the best ship and the strongest winds of opportunity, and you will still find yourself shipwrecked on the rocks of failure and regret. With a powerful philosophy, you can take a modest ship through the most violent of storms and still arrive with grace and dignity at your chosen harbor. Everything we have discussed up to this point, your story, your actions, your response to failure, the goals you set, is a consequence of your philosophy. It is the cause behind all effects. So, the most important work you will ever do is not on your job, not on your finances, not even on your goals. The most important work you will ever do is the work of consciously, deliberately, and tirelessly refining your own personal philosophy. Now, when we examine the vast spectrum of human experience, we find that most personal philosophies, in their essence, can be boiled down to one of two foundational starting points. Every person in this room right now is operating primarily from one of these two positions. The first is the philosophy of entitlement. This philosophy begins with the subtle, often unconscious belief that the world owes you something. It owes you success. It owes you happiness. It owes you fairness. It owes you a life without struggle. And when the world, as it inevitably does, fails to deliver on this unwritten contract, the result is a life defined by the language of blame. The person with a philosophy of entitlement says, My life is difficult because of my parents. I can't get ahead because of the government. My business failed because of the economy. I'm unhappy because of my spouse. Do you hear the pattern? It is a philosophy that places the source of control and the responsibility for one's life outside of one's self. This is the victim's chant. And while it may offer the temporary comfort of absolving you from responsibility, the price it extracts is your power. For as long as you believe someone or something else is responsible for your life, you are by definition a prisoner to it. The second and far more powerful foundation is the philosophy of responsibility. This philosophy begins with a single liberating and sometimes terrifying declaration. I am 100% responsible for my own life. Now, let us be very clear about what this means. It does not mean you are to blame for every circumstance that befalls you. You are not to blame for the storm. You are not to blame for the economy. You are not to blame for how other people choose to act. But you are, and always will be, 100% responsible for your response. You are the captain of your ship. The captain is not responsible for the hurricane, but they are entirely responsible for steering the ship through it. They are responsible for their training, for their clarity of mind, for the discipline of their crew, and for the choices they make in the face of the storm. The philosophy of responsibility takes the pen back from the hands of circumstance and places it firmly back in your own. It is the understanding that while you cannot always control what happens to you, you can always control what you do with what happens to you. It is the ultimate act of reclaiming your power. It is the foundation upon which all success is built. Every other pillar of a powerful philosophy must be built upon this bedrock of absolute personal responsibility. So, how do we consciously cultivate this philosophy of ownership? How do we build the intellectual and emotional fortitude to be the captain of our ship, no matter the weather? We do it by developing 3 core disciplines. The first is the discipline of thought. We have spoken of this before, but now we must see it in a new light. It is not just about positive thinking. It is about becoming a vigilant guardian at the gate of your own mind. Your mind is a garden. For years, you may have let it grow wild. The winds of the world have blown in the seeds of doubt, fear, and cynicism, and you've allowed them to take root. To cultivate a philosophy of power, you must first become a ruthless gardener. You must have the discipline to identify and pull the weeds of negative, disempowering thoughts the moment they appear. But pulling weeds is not enough. You must then have the discipline to intentionally plant the seeds you do want to grow. This is where your daily choices become paramount. The choice, after a long day, between turning on the mindless television or opening a book that will expand your mind. The choice between engaging in gossip or discussing ideas. The choice between complaining about a problem or studying its solution. Each of these is a small choice, but each choice is either feeding the weeds or watering the flowers. Each choice is a vote for the person you are becoming. The discipline of thought is the daily practice of consciously choosing what you allow to occupy the precious real estate of your mind. The second discipline is the discipline of emotion. If your thoughts are the seeds in your garden, your emotions are the weather, and most people live in a state of emotional reactivity. If the sun of praise is shining, they feel good. If the rain of criticism falls, they feel bad. If the storm of a setback hits, they are devastated. Their internal world is a direct reflection of their external weather. A powerful philosophy teaches you to build your own internal climate. It is the understanding that outside events have no inherent meaning other than the meaning you choose to give them. Imagine 2 people sitting in a traffic jam. The external event is identical. The first person, operating from a reactive philosophy, is filled with rage. They are pounding the steering wheel, cursing the other drivers, their blood pressure rising. They have given complete control of their emotional state to an external circumstance. The second person, operating from a powerful philosophy, makes a different choice. They recognize they cannot control the traffic. So, they control their response. They take a deep breath. They turn on an educational podcast. They use the lost time as a gift of learning time. Same event, radically different experiences. One was a prisoner, the other was free. The discipline of emotion is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about choosing them. It is about deciding that you are the thermostat for your own life, not the thermometer. The third, and perhaps most influential discipline, is the discipline of association. You cannot build a magnificent life surrounded by people who are committed to mediocrity. You cannot maintain a philosophy of responsibility and growth if your inner circle is filled with the language of blame and complaint. The people you spend the most time with are the architects of your future by proxy. They are either lifting you up to their level or pulling you down to theirs. There is no neutral ground. You must become a conscious curator of your personal board of directors. Think about it. For a company, you would only want the wisest, most experienced, and most supportive people on your board. Why would you demand any less for the company of your life? Take a hard, honest look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they challenging you? Are they inspiring you? Are they talking about ideas and goals? Or are they talking about other people and problems? The answer to that question will tell you a great deal about your own future. This doesn't mean you must cut everyone out of your life, but it does require a disciplined strategy. You must limit your exposure to those who drain your energy and poison your mindset. And you must actively increase your investment of time and energy with those who embody the philosophy you wish to adopt. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. Seek out mentors. Seek out peers who are playing a bigger game. Your philosophy will be shaped, for better or worse, by the conversations that echo in your ears most often. The discipline of thought, the discipline of emotion, and the discipline of association, these are the pillars that uphold a philosophy of power. And how do you know what your current philosophy is? The litmus test is simple. Listen to your language. Your words are the windows to your mind. They reveal your deepest beliefs. Do you say, I have to go to work? Or do you say, I get to go to work? One is the language of obligation. The other is the language of opportunity. Do you say, I can't afford it? Or do you ask, how can I afford it? One is a statement that ends all possibility. The other is a question that opens up all possibility. Do you find yourself saying, that's just the way I am? Or do you ask, how can I grow and improve? One is a prison sentence. The other is a declaration of freedom. Pay attention to your words for 1 week, and you will have a perfect diagnosis of your current personal philosophy. There is an old story of a Cherokee elder teaching his grandson. He said, a fight is going on inside of me. It is a terrible fight between 2 wolves. One wolf is darkness and despair. He is anger, ego, greed, resentment, and self-pity. The other wolf, he continued, is light and hope. He is joy, peace, humility, kindness, generosity, and truth. This same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandson thought for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. That is the essence of everything we have discussed in this section. Your personal philosophy is determined by which wolf you choose to feed. Every time you choose a disciplined thought, you feed the wolf of light. Every time you allow a negative thought to run rampant, you feed the wolf of darkness. Every time you choose your emotional response, you feed the wolf of light. Every time you react with anger and blame, you feed the wolf of darkness. Every time you choose to spend time with someone who inspires you, you feed the wolf of light. Every time you engage in gossip and negativity, you feed the wolf of darkness. Mastering your inner world is not a grand, mystical event. It is a moment-by-moment choice of which wolf you will feed. It is the daily, hourly practice of building your philosophy through small, conscious, and disciplined choices. This philosophy is the governor on your engine. It is the set of your sail. It is the foundation upon which your entire life is built. And once you have committed to this internal mastery, to feeding the right wolf every single day, there is only one final piece to our architecture. It is the recognition that this process of building, of growing, of becoming, is not a project you one day complete. It is the ultimate, lifelong commitment. It is the final, greatest principle of all. We have journeyed far together. We have stood at the very foundation of our lives, examining the invisible blueprint of the stories we tell ourselves, and we found the courage to draw a new one. We have built the bridge from that vision to reality with the powerful catalyst of disciplined daily action. We have walked through the fire at the University of Setbacks, learning to alchemize the lead of failure into the gold of wisdom and resilience. We have sat at the architect's table and designed our decades with the clarity of specific written goals and the courage to embrace calculated risk. And most recently, we have explored the governor on the engine, the profound importance of mastering our inner world through a conscious, personal philosophy built on the bedrock of responsibility. We have, in essence, designed and assembled a magnificent structure, the architecture of achievement. But a building, no matter how well designed, is just an empty shell until it is filled with life. And so we come now to the final piece. This is not another brick or another beam. This is the living spirit that must inhabit the structure you have built. It is the principle that animates all the others, that gives them their power, and that ensures your creation will not just stand, but will grow ever taller and more magnificent with each passing year. This is the ultimate principle. Before I share it with you, we must first confront one of the great deceptions of modern life. It is the myth of external achievement. We are taught from a young age that to have more, we must do more. That success is a matter of mastering a task, a job, a craft. We believe that if we just put in more hours, if we just grind harder at our work, success will be the inevitable result. And while effort is certainly required, this philosophy is fundamentally incomplete. It is the philosophy of the farmer who spends 12 hours a day sharpening his plow, but never takes a single moment to study the science of the soil, the patterns of the weather, or the nature of the seeds. His tools may be sharp, but his harvest will always be limited by his own level of awareness. Too many people spend their entire lives sharpening their plow. They become experts at their job, but they remain amateurs at the art of living. They climb the ladder of success only to find at the very end that it was leaning against the wrong wall. And the reason is that they missed the single greatest secret to a life of fulfillment and achievement. The ultimate principle upon which all others depend is this: you must work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Let me say that again. You must work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Now, this is not an invitation to be lazy at your work. It is an invitation to a higher form of labor. Your job can provide you with a paycheck. It can earn you a living. But your personal development, the diligent, lifelong work you do on your own character, your skills, and your philosophy, that is what will earn you a fortune. Not just a financial fortune, but a fortune of wisdom, of relationships, of joy, and of contribution. This principle is the key that unlocks the final door. It is the source code for the entire architecture, and it operates on a law of the universe that is as real as gravity. It is the law of attraction. Not the mystical, wishful thinking version of it, but the profound practical truth that success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Let me ask you this. Can a weak and bitter man attract a strong and loving relationship? Can a foolish and undisciplined person attract wealth and abundance? Can a cynical and pessimistic mind attract powerful and inspiring opportunities? The answer is no. The world does not give you what you want. The world gives you who you are. You are a living magnet. Your character, your attitude, your skills, your philosophy, these things combine to create a powerful magnetic field around you. You cannot run around the world chasing opportunities, chasing success, chasing happiness. That is like a magnet chasing scattered iron filings. It is an exhausting and inefficient pursuit. The work is not to chase the filings. The work is to increase the strength of your own magnetism. The work is to become so skilled, so wise, so disciplined, so valuable that success is left with no choice but to be drawn to you. It is like the butterfly. You can spend your entire day chasing a butterfly across a field, and you will likely end up with nothing but frustration. But if you instead pour that same energy into building a beautiful, vibrant, and nurturing garden, the butterfly will come and it will land softly on your shoulder. Do not chase the butterfly of success. Build the garden of your own personal development, and the butterflies will come. This is the great work. This is the ultimate principle. So, how do we engage in this great work? What does it mean practically to work harder on yourself? It means dedicating yourself to a lifelong curriculum in the 4 key areas of human development. The first is spiritual development. Now, this is not about religion, though it can be for some. This is about the development of your innermost self, your character, your integrity, your values. It is the work of building an unshakable moral compass. It is asking the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What do I stand for? It is the practice of humility, of kindness, of honesty. You can have all the skills in the world, but if your character is weak, your entire structure is built on sand. Spiritual development is the process of turning that sand into solid rock. It is the work of tending to the why behind everything you do. The second is intellectual development. This is the commitment to being a lifelong student. The day you stop learning is the day you start decaying. You must feed your mind with the same diligence you feed your body. What does this look like? It means turning your car into a mobile classroom by listening to audiobooks and podcasts. It means dedicating at least 30 minutes a day to reading books not for entertainment, but for education. Read the biographies of great men and women. Study the history of your field. Master the laws of economics, of psychology, of leadership. Your formal education will make you a living. Your self-education will make you a fortune. The goal is to become so knowledgeable, so valuable, that you are not paid for your time, but for your insight. You must become a person of value. The third is physical development. It is a tragedy to see a brilliant mind housed in a body that has been neglected. You can have the greatest goals and the most powerful philosophy, but if you lack the physical energy and vitality to execute on them, they are worthless. Your body is the only vessel you have to carry you through this life. To neglect it is the ultimate act of self-sabotage. This is about the discipline of proper nutrition, the discipline of consistent exercise, the discipline of adequate rest. Do not see these as chores. See them as the practices that generate the fuel for your ambition. Your health is not just another part of your life. It is the platform upon which your entire life is built. Treat it with the respect it deserves. The fourth, and finally, is emotional development. This is the realm of what many now call emotional intelligence. It is the work of mastering your own internal states, as we discussed. But it is also the work of mastering your relationships with others. Your ability to communicate with clarity and empathy, your ability to understand and connect with people, your ability to lead, to inspire, and to build a team. These are not soft skills. In the architecture of achievement, they are the steel beams that hold everything together. You can be brilliant, but if you cannot work with others, your brilliance will be trapped in isolation. Study the art of relationships. Learn to be a better listener than you are a talker. Learn to give praise. Learn to handle conflict with grace. Your net worth will often be a reflection of your network, and your network will be a reflection of your emotional maturity. Spiritual, intellectual, physical, emotional. This is the curriculum. This is the work. This is what it means to build the garden. And now, perhaps you can see it. You can see how this one ultimate principle is the force that animates all the others. When you work on yourself, what happens to the story you tell yourself? It becomes a story not of limitation, but of limitless potential. When you work on yourself, what happens to your action? It becomes more effective, more intelligent, more disciplined. When you work on yourself, what happens when you face failure? Your resilience is stronger, and your ability to extract the lesson is deeper. When you work on yourself, what happens to your goals? They become bolder, bigger, more inspiring, because you know you are becoming the person capable of achieving them. When you work on yourself, what happens to your philosophy? It becomes wiser, more compassionate, and more unshakable. Do you see? This is the grand synthesis. This is the one discipline that improves all others. This is the rising tide that lifts all the ships in your harbor. There is a story of a great sculptor who was once asked how he was able to take a rough, shapeless block of marble and create a breathtakingly beautiful statue of a lion. He thought for a moment and replied, "It was simple. I just chipped away everything that was not the lion." This is the work of your life. This is what it means to work harder on yourself than on your job. You are that block of marble, and within you right now is a masterpiece, a person of incredible strength, wisdom, and potential. Your work is not to add something to yourself that is not already there. Your work is to chip away everything that is not you. Chip away the fear. Chip away the doubt. Chip away the limiting beliefs you inherited. Chip away the bad habits. Chip away the cynical attitudes. Chip away the undisciplined choices. And what will be left when you are done? The masterpiece. The person you were born to be. The architecture of achievement is not a project you finish. It is a process you live. It is the daily commitment to this chipping away, this refinement, this lifelong journey of becoming. So as we prepare to leave this time together, the question is no longer what will you do or what will you build? The ultimate question, the one that will define the entire remainder of your life, is this. Who will you become? Thank you for your time. The work is not over. The work has just begun. Go and become the architect of a life that is a true work of art. The architecture of achievement is not complex. It is built on a foundation of timeless principles. Change the story you tell yourself. Commit to daily, disciplined action. See failure not as an endpoint, but as education. Design the life you want with clear, written goals. And above all, commit to becoming a better version of yourself every single day. Thank you for investing your most valuable asset, your time, with me today. If this message has served you, like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And be sure you are subscribed so we can continue this journey of growth together. Remember, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. Go design the life you deserve.